Hi everybody, I've got a great compilation of autumn trees for you. So these are specifically for beginners and they go through a variety of techniques for you, and it's giving you them all in one go. So have a go, have a watch and let me know what you think. Hi, so I'm back with my beginners series, and today I'm going to achieve an autumn tree landscape with just 3 colours. So I am using a Bockingford postcard size, 2 brushes, a round number 10 and a round number 6. I've got some Cotman pans here. I am going to use the cadmium yellow, the cadmium red and the ultramarine blue, and I'm going to create an autumn tree landscape with just those 3. So with my round number 10, I'm going to come on with a little bit of water. I want quite a big sky so that I can get all of these lovely trees in. No drawing, we're going to keep it nice and simple. This is all about learning what the watercolour does and how you can apply it. So with my round number 10, I'm going to dip into some of the ultramarine blue. I'm just going to dab that through loosely. So there is plenty of water on a brush. I can reload the water and dip into the pan. I do not want this ultramarine to be too dark. If it's too dark, then you won't see the autumn trees. So keep it nice and light, nice and loose. Then I'm going to swap down to my round number 6. I'm going to come in with the yellow first of all. So I'm going to bring that in and start to do some tree shapes. So I've got some bigger trees. I'm going to have some smaller trees. Just want a variety of heights, and the yellow can be the base, and then I can work with the red to create the nice oranges and browns. I quite like mixing directly on the paper, and it's quite useful for you to learn how to do that, but I will show you how we can mix some colours in the foreground within the palette as well. It's quite nice to have this little mixture. So if I rinse my brush off now, I'm going to come into the cadmium red. So this is where I'm going to get those nice oranges. If I haven't got the blue too strong, if the blue's stronger, then what you'll get is more browns. The trick is to not mess too much with the watercolour. Dab it in and let it do its thing. We're going to leave some of them a little bit more yellow. Just want a variety of heights. With my round number 6, I've rinsed my brush off. I'm going to pick up a little bit more of the blue. So if I want any bits of green or any bits of brown, this is where I now need to use the blue a little bit more. So I'm dabbing in just to create some darker areas. If I dab in where I've got a mix, I will start to get more muted colours. If it doesn't look quite green enough, then you're going to add a little bit more yellow. Just dabbing through where bits that I want to be green. If something looks a little bit purple and you want it to look browner, again add a little bit more yellow. this tree a bit more brown here. I've got a really nice mix here. Just dip into a little bit more blue down here. Just want something a little bit darker at the bottom of this tree. These little bits of blue are just going to make some darks. Ultramarine blue is great for dark. So I'm just going to get a little bit of shadow appearing in there. I'm just dabbing through with a tiny bit on the brush. That's all holding together really nicely. With my round number 10, I'm going to get a base now on this bottom section. I'm going to leave a tiny dry gap in between, just because I'm not drying them. If you wanted to dry it in between, you can do. I'm going to start with the yellow this time. So keeping to my round number 10, horizontal strokes. Remember to keep that little line in between of dry. That just stops them blending together. A dab. I've not rinsed my brush. I'm dabbing into the cadmium red very lightly. Just give a bit of warmth in the foreground, and then if I dab into the ultramarine blue, again not rinsing my brush, I want this to be quite muted. I can just blend that through in the distance. Keep that line as fine as you can in between. Okay, so I'm going to dry that off now. Okay, so that's nicely dry now. So we've got a really nice wet and wet base, just done with those three colours. So what I'm going to do now, with my round number 6, I'm going to make a bit of a brown. So I'm going to start with the cadmium red, bring some of that across, then dip into the ultramarine blue and make a purple. Then I'm going to take a little bit of yellow into it. I'm going to get a really nice brown, and if you keep adjusting, you'll get a darker brown. If it goes too grey, you want a bit more yellow in. If it goes too red, you want more yellow and blue in. So it's just keep going with the different colours. So I've got a really nice brown here. So what I want to do now is pop in a bit of a tree trunk. So I'm still working with my round number 6. I'm going to bring it down lower, resting on my little finger. I'm going to get narrower as I come up. Now, if you struggle, you can swap down to a smaller brush. A rigger or a line writer, a long thin brush is very good for this as well. I'm going to stagger the branches coming off, and I'm going to leave a couple of little gaps in places. So with any tree, I always say a jaggedy bottom works. I'm going to pop another one just in here. So this is further away, so it's higher up. So I want less detail in there. I'm just going to pop a couple of branches. Keep it nice and simple. And we'll maybe have one here as well. 3 odd numbers work really well. So we'll have a couple of staggered branches coming off this one as well. If I rinse my brush now, I'm going to wet it, take some of the water off, and I'm just going to touch the bottom of each of these trees and extend the shadow like that. So it's grounded them immediately and it's given them a base in there and a bit of a shadow detail as well. Now what I need to do next is bring in some more autumn leaves. So if I take some of the yellow onto my round number 10 and then dip into the cadmium red. I've basically got an orange here. What I'm going to do is hold my brush quite flat and catch the surface of the paper. So this is called dry brushing. I'm going to start to create some foreground foliage. If it's not strong enough, then you want a bit more red in the mix. Keep it nice horizontal. Just start to build this up. I'm going to keep these nice autumn trees. Take a little bit more red in this one over here. Just make sure your brush is loaded fairly well, holding it horizontally and then catching the surface of the paper. Takes a little bit to master this, but it works fantastically once you've got it. If it gets too wet, you'll end up with more of a blend, but that can still work really nicely, especially if your tree trunks are still a little bit wet. Then with that same two colours, we're going to do some dry brushing into the foreground. So this is horizontal and catching the surface of the paper. So you're popping all those lovely autumn leaves into there. I'll swap down to my round number 6 now. I'm going to come back into the brown. I'm just going to accentuate some of that shadow into that damp paint. Just going to take a little bit of shadow through. That's going to work really nicely. I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry, and what I'm going to do is just build up that layer of dry brushing just in the foreground. So I've swapped down to my number 6 now, again holding it horizontally, and just with a little bit more of the red in there, I'm just going to catch the surface and bring some more of the vibrancy into the foreground. That's going to help set those trees further in the distance. There we go. So I'll dry that off and then take the tape off. And there we go, that's all finished. So you've got a nice simple wet in wet sky. How to use those 3 colours to make a picture. So you don't necessarily need loads of colours. Those 3 primary colours will work well if you learn to colour mix. 2 brushes, very simple, wet in wet, then some wet on dry techniques, how to dry brush, how to do effective tree trunks and those bits of shadow. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please do like, subscribe and share. I'll pop another one for you here, and I'll see you next time. Hi everyone, I'm back again with another of my Absolute Beginners miniature series. So I'm using these sea white postcards, which I'll pop a link in the description if you're interested in those, and I'm using Cotman pans. I've got 2 brushes today. I'm using a round number 6 and a rigger, a number 2 rigger. So this is a long thin brush. We're going to have a go at some lovely trees today. So I'm going to use 3 colours today. I'll start by getting a little bit of water on. A bit more work when you're just using a number 6. Just take the water on, and I'm going to come 2/3 of the way down with water. I've actually taped this time to a back of a pad so that I can twizzle round. So this is cadmium yellow I'm going to start with. I'm going to pop in some golden hues. I'm thinking golden autumn colours. If I had a choice, I'd probably use raw sienna. You could use yellow ochre. It's just this is what I've got in this pan, and as part of this series I'm using what I've got in this pan.
so you can see how they can be adapted. So this is a little bit of cadmium yellow going in there, dabbing in. I'm loading my brush with water as I go. Then I'm going to come into a little bit. This is cadmium red. So I'm going to bring some bits of that in. So a little circular motion, and this is like an indication of some autumn trees and foliage in the background. Pushing down with a brush, circular motion. Give my brush a little rinse out, so I'm still on my round number 6. I'm going to come into some burnt umber. So I loaded the brush with a bit of water first. I'm coming in and keeping this fairly low to the bottom. So I want this to be more shadow appearing here. Okay, then I'm going to come down to my rigger. I'm going to twizzle. I'm going to come upside down. Dip my rigger in some water, and I'm going to come into the burnt umber. Now what I want to do is bring in some distant tree trunks. So whilst it's nice and wet still, I'm just running down. You can rest a little bit on your little finger. I want these to be soft. You'll notice I've not re-dipped because there's plenty of paint on the brush with a rigger. I can just bring some through and create a real feel of some distant tree trunks. Now I twizzle upside down because when I paint this way I find it easier to get to a point painting this way. Twizzle back round. Give that a rinse off, and then I'm going to come back to my round number 6. Take on a little bit of water. We're going to leave that fine gap in between. Just that fine line so that they don't blend together too soon. And this is a cadmium yellow coming in. You can see that I'm doing horizontal strokes now. That little fine dry line in between. I'm not going to rinse my brush, but I'm going to dip in a little bit more water, then come back into the cadmium red. I'm going to do some horizontal strokes again. I'm taking more to the front, less to the back, so it gives a sense of distance. Give that brush a really good rinse. I'm going to dab back into the water and then into the burnt umber. Again, bring that through in the foreground. Then I'm going to dab a little bit off on the tissue, and I want a little bit on the brush, and I'm going to bring that through as a bit of shadow. There's only a tiny bit on here. That horizontal stroke, and it's just giving a sense of shadow. This bit here where it's a bit thicker is lifting up, and it's giving a sense of mistiness as well. So I'm going to dry this one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry now, and this has got a beautiful sort of misty autumn light feel. And you could achieve this with lots of different colours. So I've used cadmium yellow, cadmium red and burnt umber. You could use raw sienna, burnt sienna and sepia. That would be a good option. You could use yellow ochre, you could use burnt sienna, and you could use burnt umber. So there's lots of different options that it works with. Okay, so I've twizzled back round. I'm going to drop back down to my rigger. So this is nicely dry and we've got some lovely soft trees. So what we're going to do now is bring in some harder tree trunks. So resting on my little finger, I want these to get smaller as they come up the page. I can stagger from the trunk to create the branches, but I don't want to eliminate everything I've done in the background. I find it much easier to paint down to a point. I want you to try it both ways. Some students struggle because it's upside down, and it's just finding which way works right for you. I'm going to put a couple of little trees in. So if I choose to do one here, I'm going to go at a slight angle. The other good thing is if you go at a slight angle, it's mixing it up. In nature, everything's a little bit different. And all of these little things help. See, I'm staggering those branches off the trunk and then bringing the finer branches off from the top. You could do this with a small, like a number 2 detail brush. That would work as well, but the good thing about a longer thin one is you get a much more natural stroke and you don't have to keep reapplying the paint. If you've got a small detailer brush, you're going to have to dip in a lot more. And you just take your time with these little fine branches. You want them to overlap in places. I'll pop a couple this side as well. So you've got all this lovely mistiness and soft focus behind it, and it gives a real good sense of distance. It's these little tips that you're going to start to learn that are going to help you as you develop. I'll twizzle this back round. And you can see that beautiful sense of distance here now. Still working with the rigger. Just going to dab in a little bit. So this is still on to dry. I'm just going to build up at the bottom. This is going to give a little additional depth just in this area. So I'm just dabbing on. I just don't want it to be too solid, so I'm breaking it up so it looks like foliage. So just a few little dabs. It's really effective. So that's got a really nice sense of distance. This has got a lovely sense of mistiness. If I just twizzle round just a little bit, again, I'm just going to pop in some twiggy bits just here. Just so it gives a little bit of foreground interest. So these could be brambly bits. Again, don't eliminate everything you've done. You just want a little bit there. Okay, I'll dry that one off. And there we go, so that's all dried off and I've taken the tape off so you can see the full effect. So really simple techniques for you that can create a beautiful finish. So you've got some wetting wet in there, some how to create distant trees, how to create foreground trees, a tip of turning upside down to help, a nice misty feel, and adding something in the foreground to create a little bit of interest. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, please do like, subscribe and share. I'll pop another one here for you and I'll see you next time. Hi everyone, I'm going to go through a nice autumn picture with some sun rays and some golden leaves in the foreground. So I've loosely drawn out a branch with a few big leaves and just very loosely where the trees are going to come in the distance and the horizon line. You don't need much on there at all. I'll go through the colours as I go. I'm using a Saunders Waterford paper. It's a rough paper on a block, 12 by 9. It's a lovely paper to use. I'm going to show you a few different techniques, starting with some wet in wet washers. So I'm using a squirrel mop brush and I'm coming on with some water. So I'm going to wet the whole of this top area. So plenty of water. I've then got something called gum arabic. Now gum arabic slows the flow of the paint. It also makes it very easy to lift off. I'm going to put about half a teaspoon on there. And then I'm going to spread that around. I mainly want it in this central area where the beams of sunshine are going to be, but I can take it all the way over. If you're using a Bockingford, a wood pulp paper, you'll find that actually it's really easy to lift off. It's a cotton paper that makes it harder to lift off. So I've got a round number 10 brush. The first colour that I'm coming into is raw sienna. That's quite creamy. It's a good pea-sized blob to half a teaspoon of water. So it's quite a creamy consistency. I'm just dabbing this into the foliage areas first. What I'm going to do then is just stroke outwards. Start to indicate the rays of sun coming through. So this is still with the raw sienna. I'm not too concerned if it comes over that area. Rinse my brush out, dry it off, and then I'm going to come into some burnt sienna. And I'm dabbling into this. Basically what I want is a nice wet in wet background wash of foliage. So dabbing with my round number 10, just creating this nice dabbing action. Again, I'm just going to sweep a little bit through, just to indicate those rays of sunshine. Dry my brush off again after rinsing, and I'm coming into a little bit of sap green. So the sap green's quite fresh, and the raw sienna and burnt sienna will dull that back a little bit. So it's one of the reasons I've taken the raw sienna on. I didn't really need to take it on, but it works to dull the sap green back a little bit. So again, dabbing into each of these sides. And get these nice foliage areas. And then again, those rays, just starting to bring those through. So you're getting that nice combination of colours. Rinse my brush off, dab it off again. This time I'm going to come down to a number 6, so I'm a little bit more in control. And I've got some raw umber here. So this is going to start to come in where we've got some darker areas. So we're going to have some tree trunks down here. So we're going to bring that in. Just make sure we create a nice edge on this dry bit on the bottom. You can take through some darker areas, just in patches within here as well. And the same this side. And just create a bit of interest at this bottom, make it a little bit more uneven. Just dabbing through a little bit of darker colour. Take a little bit off the brush because I don't want this to be too strong. I'm going to stroke some of this through, so I'm using every single colour as I'm going through to create these sun rays. If I take a little bit of some Prussian blue, a little bit of this raw umber, it's going to give me a very, very dark green. I'm going to twizzle this way round, and I'm just going to start to pop in a few little trunks. So this is still with my round number 6. If you want to go down smaller, you can come down to a detailer or even a line writer or a rigger, just so you can start to get in a few little tree trunks. This is still nice and wet because the gum arabic slows the flow of the paint and it slows the drying time as well. Just use a combination of brushes, vary the heights. Just going to get some nice soft tree trunks coming in here. I just find it easier to paint downwards to a point. So hence why I've twisted around. Then I want you to be very sparing with this green going in. We don't want it to be too dark. We can take some in. All adds to the rays of sunlight a little bit later on. So I've just really used what's on the brush. Okay, so I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dried off now. I'm going to mix up a little bit of Gamboge yellow. So this is quite a vibrant yellow. The pigment itself looks like raw sienna, but it's a nice it's a nice vampy yellow. It's got a lot of zing to it, and it's going to give us a nice sunlight on the bottom. So I've wet that. I'm coming in with this Gamboge yellow. I'm using my round number 10 horizontal strokes, and we're doing a grass surface now. You can take the yellow all the way across if you want to. It mainly needs to go into that back area. Just make sure it's not too strong because it is very, very potent, especially if you're using the cotton one. So that's giving us a nice sunlight feel. Rinse my brush off, dry it off, and I'm coming into the sap green. So this is all about now giving a sense of foreground and distance and light. So we're going to get the sap green on next. Horizontal strokes, keeping it forward. And bringing it backwards a little bit to this area. Then I want to start to create some patches of light. So I'm still using horizontal strokes, but I'm going to wiggle through so that I kept a few patches of light. You can see those patches of light on the ground, and we're going to work with those. Rinse my brush off. I'm going to dab into the burnt sienna. So there's got to be lots of autumn leaves on the ground here. So we're going to dab in horizontal strokes, small dabs, small horizontal strokes. So it's starting to build the base of these leaves. I'm not messing around on the paper, so I'm not mixing, I'm dabbing and leaving. It's all about having the confidence to let the watercolour do its own thing. If you mix too much, you'll end up with a mucky brown. If you leave it, it will start to do its own thing. I'm going to swap down to a number 6 and pick up some of the raw umber. Just want to start to just darken a few bits. We're going to take some sponging on in a bit, so that's going to give us a bit more depth. But anything we can do now to start to darken these areas in the foreground that's going to make this look lighter will work much better. So if I take a little bit of this raw umber through, and just keep to that horizontal stroke. Take a little bit along that back edge. It's all going to help to accentuate that light. The round number 6 just puts me a little bit more in control. Come back into the green. Just bring a bit more of that through, so it's all helping give a bit of shadow and accentuate those light patches, which we're going to bring out with the sun rays. Okay, I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry, and we're going to lift out some rays of sunshine. So it's going to show you how the gum arabic works. If you're on a wood pulp paper, this will just happen anyway. I've got nice clean water, my round number 10, and nice clean tissue. What I'm going to do is paint the water on and come down towards the light on the grass. If I just dab, you'll see it's starting to lift. Sometimes it takes a little bit more. You've got to take another bit of water on. You can smear and that will help lift it more. But just be careful you don't lift too much. You see that nice ray of sunlight. You want it to lift a little bit, but not too much. If you stroke away from your clean centre, then you know you're not going to make it mucky. You see those lovely rays of light appearing? I'm being quite light with the water on purpose because I want some of that colour to stay behind. I don't want it to be pure white. I just want enough to take away that you get those rays of sunshine. You still want to see what's there. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Take some thinner ones. I'm just going to do a thinner one there. So I'm hitting there. Maybe one here. And I'm really happy with that. Okay, so what I've got now is a natural sponge. It's got lots of bobbly bits, and I'm going to use that to create some foliage. So I'm going to wet it, wring it out really, really well. Don't want hardly any water on. I'm going to dab it off on this kitchen towel to take all the excess moisture out. So when I'm dabbing it now, it's soft, but there's not hardly any moisture coming out on my hands there. And we're going to start to come in with some of these colours to build this up. So we'll start with the sap green. You'll find sponging takes a lot of paint. You've only got little areas to do. So we're going to come in with the sap green. Nice and delicate. I'm dabbing, I'm twisting in the air and dabbing down. You don't want it to get too wet. And that twist in the air means that every time I dab down, it's a different stroke and it looks different. You don't want to form a pattern. Take some down here as well. Whatever we're adding in now is going to emphasize that light really nicely. Going to rinse it out. Wring it out really well. Dab it off. You'll find this is a process. You need to do it. Make sure you get as much moisture off as you can so it's nice and dry. And then I'm going to come into the burnt sienna. I'm going to pop a bit of that on. Don't worry about those bigger leaves. It doesn't matter if you come over them a little bit. It's still going to work. And you want plenty down here for these autumn leaves that have fallen. Burnt sienna is a wonderful colour to do this with. I make this look easy. I've done it for years and years. It takes some practice to getting the right push on the paper. The right piece of sponge can make all the difference. The right wetness. So persist because it's worth it. Right, I'm dabbing it off again. And I'm going to come into this raw umber. Bring this through this bottom section over those trunks. And just into those darker areas. The more of this dark that we have, the more the light will stand forward. And then the same with a few bits coming through. You can see the lights really coming out now. Okay, I'm going to dry this one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry. And what I'm going to do now is start to come into these leaves. If I can just lift any of this, and remember these have had the gum arabic on, so if I can lift any of this sponging off just to reveal the leaves, even better. If it doesn't come off, it's not the end of the world, and it will still work as texture. But we can lift a little bit of it out, I think. So it's just water and dabbing it off just to lift some of that out. Okay, so we want these leaves now to be really nicely sunlit, and this is where the change of colour helps considerably. So I'm going to come in with some gamboge yellow, and I'll talk you through the other colours. I want these to look sunlit, so I want them to look brighter. So a little trick is to use something that is different to the rest of the picture. So instead of burnt sienna, I'm going to use a little bit of cadmium orange. So I can do 3 leaves at once because I'm quick, I'm used to it. If you want to do them one at a time, do them one at a time. So this is a little bit of the cadmium orange going in. So we've got the gamboge yellow, the cadmium orange, do that little stem, and then I'm going to use a little bit of cadmium red. So each of these, I'm going to make sure that I keep some light in there. So some of that yellow is going to be showing. I'll dip into a little bit of the cadmium red. I can run that down the centre. It's quite nice if you do it so that they're not even. Often the leaves change colour bit by bit, so you get these bits of darker colours and bits of lighter colours. Run those down the centre, and then I have a trusty knitting needle. If I run this down whilst it's still damp, I'm indenting the paper. It's like I'm drawing onto the paper with a knitting needle, following the line of the leaf. That's important. So you've got to curve round if it curves around, and you're creating those veins just by indenting. It's nice and easy. So I'm using 2 brushes now. I have got my round number 10 for the yellow. I'm not wetting these before I go on. I'm just working nice and quickly. Let's see if I can get 4 done this time. Then I'm coming in with the orange. So this is cadmium orange. This is with my round number 6. Varying how much is on each of these, and then into the red. Just dab some of the red onto each of these. Remember, you just want them to stay quite golden. You want to see that light. And get my knitting needle again, come down the centres, following the curve of the leaf, and then the veins each side. You actually don't need to put many veins in. Some of the smaller ones you can get away with putting no veins in. Back to my round number 10. And then some of these just got part of the leaves coming over. So don't feel you've got to do lots and lots. You can just do a few random dabs and it will still work as part of the leaves coming over. So this is a cadmium orange going in again. Then a bit of the cadmium red. Remember, just keep a little bit of that yellow showing. These ones have dried a little bit, so just to show you what I'd do, I'd just dampen them in again on there because it's already dry. Follow the line. So some of these smaller ones I'm only going to put a central vein in. This I'm going to do that side and only one there. Then this one I will do all the way. Such a quick way to do this, much easier than painting them. Okay, so then I've got a couple that are overlapping. I've got this one here and one here. I've done this on purpose so you can see what it would do for an overlap one. So I'm coming in with the round number 6, and I'm still going to paint the leaf. So that's the gamboge, that's the cadmium orange, that's the cadmium red. All these little stems to come up as well. I think I've done most of them. You might still see a little bit of the vein, so we're going to take that in that side and that one down the centre there. And then this one has dried, so if I come on now, I can create the back of that leaf here. So you can see that overlapping. I'm going to quickly dry this off and then I'll finish off. Okay, so that's nicely dry now. I'm just going to emphasize this a little bit more because it has got a little bit lost. It was still a bit damp. So that's the back of that leaf coming over, and then that's the tip of that leaf coming over there. So if you've got ones that overlap, the other thing that you'll have is where the branches come through, they will come through and you'll see those through as red as well. So this one's going to come through here, and it just helps with the sunlit look. In fact, there's another bit there. And there and there. I've got some burnt umber here, so this is a bit stronger than and darker than the raw umber that I used earlier. And I'm going to use my round number 6 to put in the rest of the branch. So it's going to come behind. You can see how that joins together now, and you can see that sunlit look through. You can use whichever brush you're comfortable with. If you need something a bit smaller, go a bit smaller. Just want this branch to be nice and dark. I'm just going to twizzle this way to get better flow. If I do this way, I can do another one of those branches coming through. And if I do one here, like that as well. Come back into the red, just bring that through. You just get that lovely sunlit look that's coming through. Really pretty. I'm just going to pop a few more defined tree trunks just down on this. So we've got the softer ones, and just want a few in here just to help define this area. Remember what I said about everything you add to this makes this look lighter. So the darker this is, the better. So these are just all going to help darken that up. I can use my little detailer brush, or you can use a line writer or rigger just to pop in a few finer branches. I don't need much in here. Okay, I'll dry this off and pop a mount on. So there we go, all finished. I hope you've enjoyed it. Really shows how a combination of different techniques and using the gum arabic can create this lovely sunlit effect, and using the mixture of colours, the colours into the background and then a totally different colour into the foreground, that brings it forward and shows you that you can have that light and vibrancy there. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do like, subscribe and share. I'll pop another video for you here and a playlist here, and I'll see you next time. So I hope you've enjoyed those. Please do like, subscribe and share. I release 2 beginners videos for free a week, and I have a membership option that you can look up in the description. If you're interested in more beginners tutorials, I have a wide selection in the beginners playlist, super easy beginners playlist. If you're interested in the autumn watercolour course that I've just done, that's also in a playlist as well, and I'll link both of those in the description for you.